intense really is the preparation course? I know you said actually the 40-week one, actually, you could have had it more intense potentially if you'd gone on a sort of a faster paced program. How intense was it for you all? How many hours a week do you think you were putting into studying? And then what about that sort of revision time, like before the exams?
Yeah, I think I sort of touched upon it earlier that I sort of did, half an hour to an hour each night, just sort of, doing that, and then sort of on weekends doing like a longer session,
Mhm.
typically a Sunday, just because I had more time then. Um, I think sort of being disciplined with that. It was definitely an intensive course, and before the exams, I did take time off, sort of just carve that out. Work gave me some sort of days to sort of, as Sophie mentioned, we get a few days per month to just sort of allocate to that. And I think that was really beneficial to just sort of literally focus all the attention on as well. And I think if you're working right up like the night before your exams, I think that's going to definitely be a bit of a struggle.
Mm.
So I think to think about that as well.
Yeah, I like I said, I personally did I don't know if it's prefer or if it was just my way of doing things, is that I needed sort of more pressure to be doing that. So I was probably doing about an hour each night, and then yeah, a bit longer sessions on the weekend. But like I said, I was doing this more closer to the time. What I would say is about revision is I mean, I didn't really want to risk it, so I did take, I think, 2 weeks off before both exams,
Mm.
and then so I basically had a week and a half for both exams, because there is a lot to be going over at the end.
Yeah, I think sort of looking back, and that did help me with, obviously I did the 20-week course for both SQE1 and SQE2. I'd not really done many multiple choice questions before. It's a really, especially best possible answer. It's a very unique, and I think that can be quite intense as well for people because they haven't done it before. It's overwhelming that they're all technically right. So, which one's more right? The way I did it, so you have MCQs at the end of every unit, and I did them sort of the first time. And then when I'd gone further in my revision, that's when I went back to those MCQs. There's so many MCQs and it's a great learning tool. What you don't want to be doing is getting into the habit where you're just memorizing the answers. So, you're going into the exam thinking, oh, I get MCQs, I've got it, but actually you've just programmed yourself to knowing what the answer is. So the MCQs are a great resource. For SQE1, the more of those you can do, because things reappear, you'll learn things, it really tests your knowledge. So it is intense, but I think it's that balance, isn't it? I don't know if you, Alex, found this, that it's the balance of the MCQs versus the content. There is so much content. And to be completely honest with you, you're not going to learn it all. There is just no possible way unless, you've spent every single minute of the day. And even then, but that's also the beauty of having 360 questions. You don't need to get them all right. I mean, even if you get a question that you have no idea, you've still got a 1 in 5 chance. And, you might be able to take a few out through some educated guessing. So it's not the end of the world. Don't hyperfixate and, add to that intensity and that panic if you haven't made your way through all the content. Try and, I think we'll touch upon this a bit later on, but it's better to know 80% and not know the other 20% than it is to know 20% really well and not know the rest of the 80%. So think about that when you're going through it as well. If you've fallen a bit behind, try and get back overall and think, actually what's likely to come up in these exams? Is it this tiny little point, or is it, some broader concepts that I can try and get my head around? Just don't be afraid to ask for help. If you are struggling, if you have fallen behind, I mean, I was in a similar position to Alex where some stuff had happened in my personal life and I'd fallen behind. And don't just sit there and sit in your own panic and your own worry, because that's what the college is there for. They're set up for, those plans. And when I did speak to my support system at the college, we had a plan in place. Well, okay, moving forward, why don't you focus on these areas? Because that's the sort of areas where you haven't had experience before, and your MCQs are slightly lower in your practice tests. So why don't we focus on that? So don't be afraid to speak out to the college, but also to your friends, at the college and your support system there. I'm pretty sure if you know, if one of you struggling with something, there might be someone else in that circle who's struggling with that topic or struggling with the workload, and just use each other as like assets, really. So don't be bogged down. It is challenging, but it's more than doable.